All right, let's take a look at the third and final part of section 2.2. So in this section, we are going to go backwards. In the previous part, in the previous video, we were given an equation of a line, and we had to find the slope, the y-intercept, and graph it. However, we are going to go backwards, and we will have to find an equation of a non-vertical line of slope m that contains a point x1, y1, and we have to find this equation in this form of y equals to mx plus b. So here's what we need to write the equation in point slope form, which we're actually not going to do. So we are going to only be working in slope intercept form. We need the slope and we need a point on the line. And if the slope is not given, we have to find the slope. So we'll split this up into three cases. Case one, we are given the slope and the y-intercept. This is the easiest case. The slope is -4 and the y-intercept is 0, 5. Remember, our equation, it's in the form of y equals mx plus b. So we know what the slope is, it's -4. We know what the y-intercept is, it's 0, 5, or basically 5. So our equation is just going to be y equals to -4x plus 5. Okay, keep things nice and simple. Here's another way to look at it. We're given a slope of -4, so we have y equals, we know our slope is -4, so it's going to be -4x plus b. Now if we wanted to, we can take the x value of 0, y value of 5, and plug it in. So we're going to say the y value is 5, so we substitute the y with 5. The corresponding x value is 0, so we substitute the x with 0, and we have b. So we have 5 equals to -4 times 0, which is 0 plus b, and we get 5 equals to b. Once we get 5 equals b, we plug it in to our equation, and we have y equals to -4x plus 5. Let's take a look at case number 2. We are given that the slope is 3/4, but now it contains a point -8, 2. The only time we know we're given the y-intercept is when the x value is 0. Because remember, in order for us to have the y-intercept, the x value, it has to be 0. And then whatever the y value is, that is your y-intercept. But in this case, we're given the point -8, 2. If the x value is not equal to 0, this point is not the y-intercept. It's just a point on the line. So let's break this down by steps. Step number 1. We know what the slope is, so we're going to plug it in. And we're going to say our slope, so our equation is y equals to mx plus b, but we know our slope is 3/4, so we're going to replace the slope m with 3/4. So we have 3/4 x plus b. Step number 2. In order to solve for b, we need to replace the y with the y value and the x with the x value. So the x value is -8 and the y value is 2. So we replace the y with 2 and we replace the x with the corresponding x value, which is -8. And this will give you plus b. Now I'm going to give you guys one hint, which I'm going to keep repeating over and over again. Anytime you're adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing an integer with a fraction, you always make that integer into a fraction. So what we're going to do is this. We are just going to add a 1 underneath the 8. So this becomes a fraction now. So anytime you have an integer, make it into a fraction when you have another fraction. So we have two ways of looking at this. I'll do this on the side. We have 3/4 times -8/1. Method 1, in multiplication, we don't need a common denominator. We can just multiply across. 3 times -8 is -24. 4 times 1 is 4. -24 divided by 4 is -6. That's one way to look at it. Another way to look at it, 4 goes into 8 2 times. So 4 crosses out, 4 goes into 8 twice. 3 times -2 is -6. You can do it whatever way you want. Either way, we get -6 as the answer, -24 divided by 4, or 4 goes into -8 2 times, 3 times -2 is -6. We get 2 equals to -6 plus b. And then if we add 6 to each side, we end up with 8 equals to b. That is our y-intercept. So our entire equation it's y equals to 3 over 4x plus 8. You can check this by replacing the negative 8 with the x and the 2 with the y to see if the left side equals to the right side. And it will if you did this correctly. Now, case 3, we're given 2 points on a line, but we're not given a slope. So remember, step 1, we need a slope, and then we need to plug it in. So step 0, we need to actually find the slope if it's not given to us. So in this case, let's find our slope. Our slope is y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. So the first point is x1, y1. The second point is x2, y2. So if I do y2 minus y1, that's 13 minus parentheses 5. Always put the second point in parentheses. Our x2 is 1 minus parentheses our x1. That's negative 3. That's our x2 minus x1. So 13 minus 5 is 8. 1 minus negative 3, the two negatives become a positive. So 1 plus 3 is 4. 8 divided by 4 is 2. That's our slope. So now that we have our slope in step 1, let's plug it in. We have y equals to mx plus b, but we know what our slope is. Our slope is 2. This gives us y equals to 2x plus b. Okay, but we still have to solve for b. So now we can take either point, the negative 3, 5 or the 1, 13. It doesn't matter. Let's just take the negative 3, 5. So I replace the y value with 5, because notice my y value is 5, so I replace the y with 5. And my x value is negative 3. So my corresponding x value is negative 3, so this gives you 5 equals 2 times x. So I replace the x with negative 3 because that's the corresponding x when y equals 5 plus b. So this is going to be 2 times negative 3, that's negative 6 plus b. And if I add 6 to both sides, I get b is equal to 11. Sorry about the small writing. Okay, so here I get b equals to 11. Now that I know b equals to 11, I can put it all together and say y is equal to my slope, which is 2x, plus my b, which is 11. And this time I'm going to check the answer just to make sure I did it correctly. So to check the answer, I can take any point. Since I used the first point, let me use the second point to check. I replace the y with 13, and I replace the x with 1. So the y with 13, the x with 1. So I get 13 equals to 2 plus 11. 13 equals to 13. Since that checks out, my equation is in fact correct. So our steps, first find the slope. If it's given to you, great, just plug it in. If it's not given to you, find the slope, then plug it in. Then plug in either one of these points, replace the y with the y, x with the x, and solve for b. All right, last thing. Well, sorry, this is going to be done in class, so we'll do this one together. Now, last thing is parallel and perpendicular lines. Parallel lines are lines that never intersect. So these are examples of parallel lines. And here's the key thing about parallel lines. Their slopes are equal. M1 equals to M2. So if two lines are parallel, they have equal slopes. Lines are perpendicular if they cross at a right angle. And the key thing to know about this is that the slopes of perpendicular lines are negative reciprocals. Now, what does that mean, negative reciprocals? Here's what it means. It means that if M1, or this the first slope, is equal to negative 3/4, then the corresponding perpendicular line will have a slope of negative. It means we change the sign, so the negative becomes a positive, and the reciprocal means we flip this, so the 3/4 becomes 4/3. So if two lines are perpendicular, the slopes are negative or opposite reciprocals of each other. Here's another example. Let's say one slope is equal to positive 6. That's like 6 over 1. The corresponding slope, so because this is positive, we have to change the sign, make this negative, and the reciprocal of 6 over 1, if we flip this, is going to be 1 over 6. So our corresponding slope is going to be negative 1/6. How do we use this? Find the equation and slope-intercept line of the line, or slope-intercept form of the line that is parallel to this line, 3x plus 2y equals 8, and contains a point 6, 1. Okay, step 0, we need to find the slope. Now, how do we find the slope? Normally we have 2 points. In this case, we only have 1. But here's what we know. We're given a line that's parallel to the line we want. And we just learned that parallel lines have equal slope. So if I can find the slope of this line, then I can find the slope of the line parallel to it. So the line we have is this. Let me actually do it on the side. So the line we're given is the line 3x plus 2y equals 8. We also learned previously that if I want to find the slope of any line, I have to get the y by itself. So I'll start by moving the 3x to the right, subtracting 3x from both sides. So I have 2y equals to negative 3x plus 8. The y is being multiplied by 2, so I divide everything by 2. And this gives me y equals to negative 3 over 2x plus 4. I don't really care about the 4, but what I do care about is the slope. The slope m, that's equal to negative 3/2. The y-intercepts have nothing to do with each other, but when two lines are parallel lines have the same slope. So if the slope of this line is negative 3/2, the slope of the line we want is also going to be negative 3/2 because parallel lines have equal slopes. So now that I found the slope in step 1, I'm going to plug it in. I have y equals to negative 3 over 2x plus b. In step 2, I take my given point, my x is 6 and my y is 1, and I plug it in for the y and the x. So for my y, I replace that with a 1. My y is 1. My corresponding x value is 6, but I'm going to write that as 6 over 1 because anytime I have one fraction, make this into a fraction also, plus b. So I can do this two ways. 3 times 6 is 18. 2 times 1 is 2. 18 divided by 2 is 9. Or I can say 2 goes into 6 3 times. 3 times 3 is 9. Either way, I get 1 equals to 9 plus b. Subtract 9 from each side, and I end up with b is equal to negative 8. So my equation is y equals to my slope, which is negative 3 over 2 times x, plus my b, which is a negative 8. Right? And that's my line. Last example, we're given a line that is perpendicular. So our given line is this. Our given line is negative 2x plus 5y equals to 3. That's our given line. We want to find the line perpendicular to it. So let me just get you guys started. First, we need to find the slope of the given line. So we're going to add 2x to both sides. This gives you 5y equals to 2x plus 3. And then I divide everything by 5. So I get y equals to 2 over 5x plus 3/5. Now, I don't really care about the y-intercept. That's unrelated. But we do care about the slope, which is 2/5. We know that the slopes of perpendicular lines are negative reciprocals. So here's what we know. That if our slope is 2/5 for the given line, then the slope of the line we want is going to be its negative or opposite reciprocal. So if this is 2/5, that's going to be a negative, and we flip this. We take the reciprocal of 2/5, which is 5/2. So our equation is going to be y equals to negative 5 over 2x plus b. And then in class, we will finish off this problem. So we are going to replace the y with the y value and the x with the x value and find the equation of the line.